Stop! Sure you want the rest of it?
Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast.
Every penny's worth it.
Welcome to Dirty Harry Minute, the only podcast in the world that reviews every minute of the 1971 Warner Brothers classic, Dirty Harry. I'm your host, John, and as ever, I'm joined with
Trent
and
Tim,
and we are joined again this week with our returning guest, Ben. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
Did you like this minute?
Yes, this was a good minute.
Good place to start.
Yep. Well, it starts with Harry being talked down to. He's very small at the start of the frame.
Yeah. He's deliberately missed a good seat between the chief and the lieutenant and walked to stand out on his own.
Yeah, true. Well, it's a bit awkward sitting between two people when you're trying to talk to them.
And we still have those partially identified artifacts on his desk.
Yeah, we're in the same frame as we've ended on the same frame as what we ended on the previous minute.
Very true. Must have been the same master shot or a similar one they've returned to.
We can still see John Vernon's sideboards on display in front of his ear.
And some more wood panelling that's pretty gorgeous. Wonder if they had difficulties with the lights in there reflecting. There's a little bit there near the main door on the left. But
A lot of police jargon in this minute.
Yeah.
And phrases.
And when Harry assumes his seat, he's sort of panting, did you notice? He's sort of looking down as the mayor comes to him. I wonder if he was just waiting for things to begin. I'm here, so what, you know? I should be out there attending to a lot of procedural forensics and search patterns. And
Yeah, he's got work to do.
Yeah, they're wasting his time.
Yeah.
He's just
He's
said,
sitting on his ass for
Scorpio
45
is
minutes.
out there right now.
Yeah, but it really looks like he's sort of panting when he's looking down. Not this shot, but the one before. I just noticed that. And I wonder if Harry feels a little bit guilty about his funny line before to the mayor, if he overstepped the mark.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'd give a shit.
Yeah, I didn't get that impression.
Yeah, I think he'd be proud that he said it.
He's got better things to do, Harry.
Exactly.
It's nice to know he said 12 men under him. So we think he's at the bottom of the food chain, but maybe he's got a lot of pencil pushing so-and-sos below him.
Interesting how they let John Vernon stand in the scene. Obviously, it's indicating his power, seniority.
He outranks them all, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
He's got all these gold artifacts in front of him that he's presiding over. And of course, you get to see how Harry, in this minute, he's always interrupted by the lieutenant. And everyone in this movie, a lot of his superiors try to overtalk him. Because I suppose the lieutenant's trying to tell the mayor, don't worry, the public side of this, we've got, we need an announceable so you can tell the public everything's being attended to, we're looking out.
Did you catch the reference to a computer? He said he's putting something through the computer.
Pretty big back then.
Or a computer.
Well, it takes up the whole of the basement.
What? I thought computers started in the 80s, didn't they? I mean...
No, they had them in the 60s, but they were the whole room
Those
ones.
big things that counted or...
Yeah.
So literally the word bug originates from that period, doesn't it? Literally a cockroach has got into one of the valves.
A computer used to be a person.
Someone who computed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Actually,
would
that was a job, yeah.
that
Right,
was
yeah.
somebody's
It's your job now,
to be
Tim.
A computer. And that's probably what we'll go back to, in the post-apocalypse.
Yeah, true.
We'll get the iPhone thing, the iPad thing, and punch the glass out and just put it on somebody's face and ask them questions.
In a hole in the wall.
This is what people did in the old days.
Do you think Harry, Tim, is used to these types of guys? Obviously, we'll talk later. Maybe he has a big history with Bresler, maybe the chief as well. This is commonly happens. He's interrupted all the time.
Well, I get the impression that he sort of doesn't do things the way that standard law enforcement practices would have him do. So he's sort of against the grain. and he probably gets caught up on it a bit, but he's all about justice. So this probably, it's not the first time he's been.
Do they, like, in the movies after this, because I think I've only seen Magnum Force, do they talk about his past more? Or
Yeah.
is it still a mystery?
You get to see where he lives on his own, eating that cheeseburger on his bed, and he's pretty lonely. And there's some...
But
Later in this movie, there's a backstory about his dead wife.
yeah, but that was only like one line in the movie that they don't they don't sort of elaborate more in the future.
I don't think they really go
Yeah.
that deep. into it.
Yeah, I don't seem to recall any mention of military service or anything like that.
Not in the
There's no
movies.
flashbacks, that's for
No.
Not the movies. It's
Yeah, so I'm getting things confused with Death Wish when he's a Korean War vet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ooh, which war is yours,
This is-
Kessler, or whatever?
Yeah.
This is what, instead of a sequel, they could make a prequel.
Yeah,
With Scott Eastwood.
Scott Eastwood. Yeah.
Like how do you, John, see him stand out as opposed to other kind of vigilante characters that came about? Because he seems, I mean, he's a little bit more restrained than some of the other, like even like Charles Bronson in Death Wish. Obviously, his motivations differently, but for being called Dirty Harry, he's not really that dirty. Like, I mean, he's still a fairly conservative, between the lines kind of guy compared to where the sort of the genre, if you will, has gone.
Yeah, true. I think the word dirty usually infers like planting evidence, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
you know,
that
going
sort
to
of
some real extreme.
or torture, perhaps. Haven't seen it yet, but maybe in future minutes. He's a cop that just lives, as Milius has said, for the hunt, you know. In the future, we'll see Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon as a backstory that his wife has been killed or some injustice has been done, but we're not presented with the backstories of either Harry or his antagonist Scorpio in this. They're just presented as they are, the putative good and evil. And whereas the future, John, what's his name? In Die Hard, he has he's
John McClane.
estranged from his wife all the
Yeah,
time or
yeah.
whatever. Whereas Harry's not fighting for anything else but, punishing the evildoers. And right now he's in a meeting, he's probably thinking, why am I here? You're not going to listen to anything I've said.
I also wonder, where, like that scene in Zodiac where, it's the crowd cheering. It's like how much of it at the time was just about sort of presenting this cop who does the right thing
Yeah,
and catches
yeah.
the bad guy,
The cathartic feeling of like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it would have been interesting to watch it back in the day. Like, how much would the audience have been laughing at, these jokes and like clapping at the screen and all that?
Do you know what John was John Milius the ultimate credited writer?
No, it's the Finkeys and then Dean Reisner polished the script when he came along when Clint
Do you know
said,
what
I
his
want Siegel to do it.
was? Like,
His contribution
was it
was-
more Taxi Driver kind of.
Yeah, we've got some delicious quotes that we'll share on the podcast later. He mentioned, I'm not a big fan of, I'm not very knowledgeable about Kurosawa and the Lone Gun Detectives. And are you familiar with them, Ben? He tried to model his early versions of the script on that.
Something like was it Stray Dog?
Mm.
Um,
And so in the Sinatra draft, he made Scorpio, I think, really over the top with, we'll talk about it later, a flamethrower on the bus with the kids and things like
right,
that.
okay.
I really don't think he did much on the script. I'm prepared to be debated in future minutes about that, Tim. I don't know. What's Milius's reputation
do the
these
second
days?
one?
People love him?
Pretty well regarded.
Yeah.
I mean, he directed Big Wednesday. I mean, that's good enough for me. That's
yeah.
a brilliant
Go
film.
Gary Busey.
Yeah, and Jan Michael Vincent.
And didn't he write Conan?
Yeah, Conan, that's right.
Conan?
Directed it, I
Or
think.
directed?
Yeah. What
But is that viewed now as a bit of a campy fun? I don't know.
Oh, right.
Summer of 42, that was pretty well regarded.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that's off topic.
Off topic in this minute. I mean, why do you think they've invited Harry into this room? I mean, they don't really want to listen to him. Or at least Bresler is a bit embarrassing, as I said, keeps interrupting him because he wants to give the mayor, the announceables, as they call them, we want to tell you how this will look for the public, what we're doing. Whereas Harry's like, look, I know this, I'm right, I'm trying to solve who the killer is, identifying him, and they're just about making sure it doesn't happen again.
I suppose, if it's how the law, is stopping him, especially at the end, he throws his badge away that he's done with this, that to have like his first interaction with these guys, who he's supposed to be on the same team with, is being chewed out and looked down on, and having his time wasted. So these guys, to some degree, these guys are being painted as the bad guys as well. These are a problem for him. Well, they don't respect him anyway.
Also, they get a bit of exposition out, telling you what they're doing, and they've just read that letter.
I suppose that's what Zodiac was more sort of getting at, that that the bureaucracy and whatnot ended up being the enemy, that the Zodiac was never caught, but these people ended up fighting against the organizations that were actually supposed to find him. See, we missed out on the Terrence Malick Dirty Harry.
But then it's more satisfying to me, the type of movies I like, that it's about the obsession of punishing, getting the criminal, not determining who it is. Do
you, like, as you say about like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, do you see this as a plus, the fact that like his backstory is only mentioned in slight? Like with Star Wars, it was actually better when you only imagined how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. That like to imagine how Dirty Harry became Dirty Harry is better than like having some large explanation that laid down exactly how it was and no other way. But you still leave a little bit of mystery.
I agree very much. And one good thing to say about the sequels, and they have their own charms, is that they don't really divulge too much of the backstory. So that they just tease it out in small bits where it's appropriate. But of course, Pauline Kael will criticise the movie on the villain side, like, we should know Scorpio's background because there's probably some sociological reason, or you're just painting this as I never know how to pronounce this word, Ben, Manichian? About good and evil, absolute good and evil. Harry is good and Scorpio's evil, but in the new trend.
Well, I mean, I suppose then it's like, well, even if there was some reason that humanized him, like, if he was molested by the Catholic Church or something, does that make what he's doing any less wrong? And that, like, should the movie play out any differently, even if there was some revealed reason why he was doing what he was doing? He still killed a bunch of innocent people. And he had to be stopped then and there.
Critics at the time complained that Scorpio is painted as sort of like a deranged hippie killer, because later on you'll see that.
Yeah.
But right here we see the letter. He's just a standard nut racist homophobe. He's got the Catholic priest or Negroes. At the moment, he just seems like not particularly a new left-wing villain, but...
I mean, I didn't realize until quite recently how
bad.
much Manson like changed things in America, and especially on like the West Coast.
Yeah, big time.
And like to some degree, like he brought the whole hippie flower child thing like to a fucking screeching halt. And how like people freaked out, and to some degree quite rightly freaked out about like, Jesus Christ, if this is the kind of thing that people who are into like, free love and everything couldn't do, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the counterculture was kind of becoming a slightly accepted thing in, you look at Easy Rider as the
they were the sympathetic characters in it, and just doing what they're doing, like, and put upon by these evil rednecks.
Yeah.
And then you have like somebody like Charles Manson. It's like, fucking hell.
And then I guess this is around the time the serial killer became a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that series Mindhunter.
And that crime in America was really exploding.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds, when I hear about the 60s and stuff, it all sounds about the hippies and, all right, you had Vietnam, but you don't hear about the really upswing in violence.
Yeah, what was it? The Watts riots.
Yeah, 65.
65, there was that. Boston Strangler was another thing. But yeah, it's just sort of... I mean, they often refer to, when Kennedy was assassinated, like that was the end of the innocence kind of thing, post-World War II. But then it was a slow descent because, there's the riots and things like that. But, this sounds like I'm trivializing that event. But it was, one-off incidents that seemed to sort of scar and linger on the portrait today, like Manson.
Did you ever see that documentary, Killing in America or Killing of America?
The early 80s one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
That had a whole lot of... I don't remember there actually being any real narration or something to it. I just remember it being like a series of kind of like news footage articles about various serial killers and things, and how like the sale of guns just exploded in the 70s and 80s. Do you know if this movie helped sell 44 Magnums?
I think that's what some of the IMD comments seem to suggest. Yeah. This is, of course, a lot of commentators on the decay of the American urban environment say this was the sweet spot because you've had 2 decades almost of white flight from the cities, middle-class white people moving to the suburbs, but yet the sorry to be so bold, but the crack-infested urban environments of the 80s we associate with Reagan's America hasn't yet developed, so it's a sweet spot in the urban environment where there's a certain still amount of whites and blacks in the city together.
It's a pretty weird period when you think about it, because there was the end of the innocence kind of thing, and then the hippie era, and then in the 80s you had the crack explosion across the country, HIV, AIDS, and things like that. There's big epidemics in these downtrodden areas, and I don't know. It's sort of a strange little bookended period.
I thought it was. Does anyone here believe in astrology broadly?
Astrology?
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea about the zodiac.
When Athena Starwoman stopped publishing a Woman's Day, my interest ended. Yeah. Dear Fiona.
Anyway, I thought it was funny how Clint pipes up. He says, natives of Scorpio. I would just assume to say star sign. I didn't know the terminology. If you're a native of Scorpio, it meant you were
is
star
that
sign.
if you were born within, if that was your star
That's
sign?
right, yeah. He says
okay.
native. He gets to get Bresler back and he interrupts him and says, natives of Scorpio. And, which, Tim, I thought I'd ask you. Do you think, I think Scorpio is a really good name. That's sort of, obviously the zodiac links there that really lands. It's a pretty cool name. And I was just thinking, are there any other zodiac names that would sound cool for a killer? You've got Cancer, would have been a good one.
That was the first one that sprung to my mind.
And Sagittarius, of course, which I
well,
Googled, has the bow and arrow, so he's like a killer.
There was the TV series called Aquarius, wasn't there? About a serial killer,
that was
I
about
think.
Manson, though.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it had David Duchovny in it.
Yeah, right.
All right.
I watched the first episode and couldn't get into it. I think maybe because I'd read a book about Manson before that, and it was just...
So I reluctantly did a little minor research, and apparently Scorpios are obsessed with death and manic behaviour. And then I thought, why am I researching this?
It'd be really cliche, but the Gemini killer. He
Gemini,
would be like, it doesn't even know he's committing the crime. It's like Fight Club style.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Some of them are a bit girly, yeah. Aries killer.
The Pisces killer.
Virgo.
Yeah.
Virgo killer.
It's like, I'm sure somebody's tried them all. Like,
The Libra killer. Off balance. Taurus.
Well, there's not too much to add in this minute. Obviously, the mayor ends by just asking if anyone's mentioned the letter. I assume he just wants to keep this. It'd still be the case today, wouldn't it?
I
Keep
think
this
we're right in conversation.
always keep this private. This letter, yeah. Well, unless you have anything else to add, I think we'll move on to minute 9 next week. Anything to add?
Not a
Yeah,
thing.
good.
Well, we'll catch you next time on Dirty
Harry.
Minute.
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 Minute.